Evening, everybody. It's Barry Harding-Rathbone here. Welcome to the second of my short vlogs. Hopefully it'll be a bit shorter than the last one. This time my perspective on occurrences, similarity, synchronicity, call it what you will. This afternoon, John and I were very, very happy to have visited an old haunt of mine, Bournemouth Spiritualist Church. If you live in the town, it's at the top of Bath Hill, near the Royal Bath Hotel. If you're from out of town and have never visited it, if you do come to Bournemouth at any time, do make sure you visit this wonderful church. I remember back when I first got involved, just a couple of years ago now, that it was called, what am I saying, a couple of years ago? It's a quarter of a century. It's 25 years since I first set foot in that church. And it was called the Cathedral of Spiritualism in the UK, and I think it certainly stands up to that. It's a beautiful building, not big and grandiose and sort of 13th, 14th century or high Gothic or whatever. It's a building built at the beginning of the 20th century. It seats about 200 people in like a theatre style. It's got cinema sit-up seats. First time I'd ever been in a church with that sort of thing, and I thought it was fantastic. But what made it special was the atmosphere and the people in it. And I just said it only felt like a couple of years ago, and it really is a quarter of a century since I first set foot in there. I used to stand outside it before I became involved in spiritualism, virtually every week for a period, before I met my then girlfriend, later fiancée and wife. Unfortunately, obviously, you know, we're no longer married, and the mother of my children. Now, I stood outside because as a convicted born-again Christian, I mean, I had convictions, not I was in jail or anything like that. I used to stand outside and barrack people going in for the services or going in for healing demonstrations because they were playing with the devil, because I didn't know it any better. It's what I'd been taught by the leaders of our church, and I was happy to go along with that because I'd read those little tracts in the Bible that says, as you read it now, it's wrong to communicate with spirit. You mustn't eat fish apart from on a Friday. You mustn't eat bottom feeders like shrimps and prawns. You can't eat pork. You've got to wear a hat if you're a lady, and all that ridiculous stuff that was common sense at the time when it was written for the people there. But the similarities with then and now are very different. What was common sense teaching in those days, an oral tradition, has very little relevance in today's society. I mean, let's just take the simple one of not eating pork or shellfish. Not selfish, shellfish. It's because the people of Israel, the 12 tribes, were nomadic. They were traversing across what we now call the West Bank, or Palestine, after their freedom from slavery and in Egypt. And they didn't have fridges. They didn't have ways to keep food safe and able to be at 2 or 3 days after it had been prepared or it had been cured or whatever. And so there were common sense teachings, like a woman must wear a hat in a church. I still know quite a few of the older generation where you see them going to church every Sunday and the ladies have got their best bonnets on, because it says in the Bible you must wear a hat. What it was saying was cover your head because you're going to be outside a lot in that heat, in that blazing sun near the equator, and you're going to pass out, you're going to be ill. It was all common sense. But there was a synchronicity in those days between what they were taught and what they did as part of their daily life, their ritual of living. And I mean, the same is true today. You know, we teach our children the Green Cross Code to look left, look right, look left again, and then preferably call a taxi or whatever. And some of the rituals and the activities of daily living are synchronicity. They exist in our life because they have a relevance to what is happening at any particular time. The same is true in faith terms or religious terms, or in spiritualist terms as our way of life. 25 years ago, when I first set foot inside that church, I was scared stiff, because I thought the people in there were going to be cutting the heads off chickens and pouring their fresh blood over newborn babies if they weren't eating the babies as well. There'd be black magic going on, that everything would be in darkness, there might be a table tilting or knocks and raps, like there was somebody blocked underneath the table. Couldn't have been farther from the truth. But the synchronicity in what I believed because of ignorance and the reality was so disconnected that I had myself being really challenged and finding myself starting again. And that is something that happens a lot in our lives. We find we get a certain set of beliefs, a certain set of ways of doing things. The three things that we get beliefs about, of course, are politics, religion, and in this country, football, soccer, if you're American, sorry. And, we find that we become the results or the manifestation of the way we've learnt to express ourselves, the way we've learnt to be, because of experience, or quite often because other people, particularly those who have a direct influence over us, so it may be our older family members or our older siblings, even our younger siblings, or as parents we might learn off our children. And these ways of doing things very quickly synchronize with our way of life until one becomes very connected to the other. Now, apart from a couple of odd occasions over the last 25 years, I can't believe it, I'm nearly 50. And I walked in there today for the first time because, sadly, there was a bit of a falling out between myself and other people in that church. One, because of politics, but largely because of the breakdown of my relationship, my marriage, to the daughter of one of their most regular and most admired mediums. And I have to say, despite the personal differences we may have now, I am happy to say on record now that if it hadn't been for me meeting Debbie, my ex-wife and mother of our two fantastic kids, Stefan and Francesca, who I miss with all my heart, I wouldn't have met her mum, Pam Creek. Now, Pam, she's quite elderly now. I think she's just about to turn 91, but I'm pretty sure she's still as spry and fit as she ever was, because she's always kept herself well. She was a phenomenal medium, and I presume she still is. I have little contact with her now, and there was certainly nothing said by our friends, long time ago friends, who I've reconnected with today. Oh, the reason we were there was I was playing for a wedding, and John was turning the pages for me. I was organist there, as I say, a quarter of a century ago, and although I was a bit rusty to start with in my practice before the wedding, it really was like I was slipping my hand into an old glove or my foot into an old slipper. It was, once I got back on that stool and I was playing that organ, I fell right back into being at home. But it became my spiritual home because of the welcome into spiritualism and the proof that my former mother-in-law, Pamela Jane Creek, one of Bournemouth's longest-serving and much-loved mediums back in her day. I don't even know if she still serves churches. I imagine she's probably taking a well-earned rest now. But there's a synchronicity, again, that I've been out of that church for 25 years, and it could be said that because of the personal differences that certain people in that church community had with me and I with them back in the day. A lot of it which revolves sadly around the fact that Debbie and I had divorced, but it was a mutual divorce, certainly by equal consent. Nobody else was involved. Certainly nothing to do with sexuality or anything like that, because I didn't know this myself at the time. I genuinely didn't. Although ironically, the president of the church said to me this afternoon, he said, I told you back then when you got divorced that you were gay, but you would sidle up the organ stool to me and whisper at the beginning of a service, I'm not gay. I don't care what you say. I'm not gay. You've got it wrong. I'm just here to play the organ. I'm not gay. Marriage is broken down, but nothing to do with sexuality. And it wasn't. There were personal issues at the time, which at some point I may bore you with. But he said, a few weeks later, a few months later it was actually, I slid up the organ stool again towards where he was stood at the podium that the chairperson for the service stand behind in this particular church, and the organ's next to it. And I said, you know what, you were right. And he said, I knew I was right all along. Synchronicity. Occurrences that happened that at the right time become active, become complete. And I've just finished sending him an email. I am exceptionally tired, as you may have noticed. I had John and I both had a bad day yesterday. There were some very just distressing things that we had to deal with. One involving a friend who'd become bereaved the day before, and which, although we didn't know the person who passed away, you still feel for your friend, and that, because we allowed it to, put a bit of stress on us, and personal problems, which if you go and look at hubby's channel, Borderline John, you'll begin to get a bit of an insight into. So, very tired, but walking into that church, that cathedral of spiritualism, it's not just the bricks and mortar, it's a cathedral because of the energy that's in there. It was like I'd come back home. And if we allow ourselves in life, I'm not saying everybody should make a trip to Bournemouth just to walk through the doors because you get some sort of plenary indulgence and everything will be fantastic for you for a moment. But for me, for the first time I've been there for a long time, and for John, because it's the first time you'd been in it, wasn't it? In the church at Bath Road.
You've got your hand over the camera.
Oh, sorry. It was the first time you'd actually been into the building, wasn't it, John?
And the first time I've ever been to a spiritualist wedding.
And what did you feel? Did you feel comfortable? Did you feel out of sorts or anything? Or did
it feels really comfortable and amazing. I was really anxious about it, and yet the second I stepped into the church and met the two gentlemen, it was like synchronicity. Like, I felt really calm, and I
it was meant to be.
I felt it was meant to be, and I also felt very at ease. And I actually saw orbs with my naked eye while I was giving out healing to Barry. I saw about 6 of them, and that's the most I've ever seen.
I have to say, I really needed that healing because the stool is incredibly uncomfortable on that instrument. Needs a good waxing because I couldn't slide up and down it like, please don't be sitting there making up your own stories. The organ stool, when you play the organ, your body has to move fluidly so your feet can play the full pedal board. And it was a bit difficult to do. And so it made my already painful back a bit more painful. Sorry, I'm rambling a bit, but what I'm trying to get across to you today is that things happen for a purpose. They happen at a time when they're meant to happen. That's what synchronicity is. That's what I think occurrences are. And I'd urge you all just to go out and enjoy when these events happen in your life. They may not be related to spiritualism. They may be related to something completely different. In fact, I'm sure they will be. But go with the flow. Don't fret when things don't happen exactly at the moment you expect them to or you want them to. Don't go out demanding of yourself or of your interpretation of God or of creation that A must happen to be today for me to be happy and complete and fulfilled. Because, you're going to get a slap across the face and realise that it ain't happening that way. It will happen when it's meant to happen. But that feeling of coming home like I'd never been away was just wonderful. So make the most of those opportunities when they happen. That's basically what I'm saying. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, well, please tell me so, and I'll get rid of it and try and say it again when I'm not quite so tired. But enjoy your life. Life is not about suffering. We don't suffer our way through life. Life is about a journey where we have experiences, where we have events, where we have moments of education. And I'm not just sitting here and saying that I'm talking about a blackboard and a teacher and homework and history tests and all that sort of thing. I'm talking about life as an experiential journey. And some of those experiences will lead you to synchronicity or a coming together of your thoughts, your processes, or the education that you've had along the journey. I really feel like I've come home in my life for the first time for ages. First part of that was meeting my wonderful husband. And the joy of falling in love with somebody who felt like he was the other side of me, the other half of me, and that we're meant to be together. But it happened when it was meant to be. Not because I forced it, not because he forced it, not because we ran around our individual lives trying to find the right perfect person and trying to change the wrong people into being the right people, or believing that the wrong people were the right people and trying to force the issue. When you let go, and I mean, there's a phrase in Christianity, I'll just leave you with this: when you let go and let God. Well, remember, we have a slightly different conception of God, in that God is an energy that is all powerful, all loving, all creative, rather than a man on a cloud with thunderbolts in one hand and a halo in the other. But that energy that exists through everything, that causes everything, was before everything, is everything now, and will always be in and through and by everything. And that when we let go and start to enjoy life and start to make the most of every opportunity that presents itself, every emotive situation is a joy. So it's a bit longer than it would normally be. I will aim to get these vlogs down shorter, but I hope you enjoy. If you did, please like, comment, share, subscribe. Don't forget to have a look at our Haunted Happenings episode that John finally managed to get up last night after 4.5 hours of solid editing and polishing and putting in the music and all the other bits of fancy stuff that he does, and he's done a fantastic job, and I can't thank him enough. Or Luke, for that matter, for his first camera appearance alongside me. It was great to have him on board and sharing the load, and there's going to be a lot more of this coming. So people, if you don't want to hear me sat here talking so much, please send us your comments, send us your suggestions about episodes you might like to see, send us your questions for Q&A sessions, or please ask us to come and do an investigation if you think there may be something at your house. Anywhere in the UK, Ireland or the Channel Islands, we're more than happy to accommodate. So we look forward to hearing from you, and bless you and namaste.